Welcome, one and all, sisters, brothers, fathers, mothers, to another one of my special wizard tales.
Ali Baba. Many years ago, in the high mountains of Persia, a poor young woodchopper was working with his wife. The woodchopper's name was Ali Baba, and his beautiful wife was called Shara. Shara was new to woodchopping, and her strikes at the fallen tree were unsteady. Suddenly, a wayward blow from Shara's axe snapped off a chip of wood which hit her husband in the face.
Are you all right? Oh, husband, I am so sorry,
she cried. But Ali Baba was fine. In fact, he was sorry that they were so poor that his beautiful wife had to chop wood. She should be married to a rich sultan, not some poor axeman. Shara didn't mind. She loved Ali Baba, and that was enough for her. So Ali Baba and Shara loaded up their donkey and took the chopped wood into town. They delivered the wood to the grand house of a rich merchant. The merchant looked down at Ali Baba and Shara from his balcony. He was a cruel man, and he refused to pay them any gold for the wood. Instead, he offered them only a piece of bread. Ali tried to protest, but it was no use.
I can do anything I like. I'm rich,
crowed the merchant. But when the merchant threw down the piece of bread, it landed on the donkey's head. The poor donkey panicked and kicked in the door of the merchant's house. Ali Baba and Shara had to run away from the furious merchant. The next morning, Ali Baba decided to go out into the forest alone. He was sure the angry merchant would be looking for them, and he thought he and Shara would be safer if they stayed apart. Shara said she would seek work at the house of Ali Baba's elder brother, Qasim. Qasim lived right next door, but unlike Ali, Qasim was very rich. He had many servants and a remarkably ugly wife. So Shara went to Qasim's, and Ali rode the donkey into the mountains. As Ali gathered up the wood, he sadly thought to himself,
Ali Baba, is this to be your life forever?
Just then, Ali and the donkey heard a strange roaring sound. Ali was confused. Was the noise an avalanche? Was it a storm? Or was it men sent by the merchant to find him? Ali quickly hid himself and his donkey. It was horses and riders all right, but not the merchant's men. Riding straight towards Ali Baba was the notorious Mustafa the thief and his band of 40 men. But as Ali Baba watched, an amazing thing happened. Mustafa and his men seemed to suddenly disappear into the side of a mountain.
How can they just vanish? That's impossible,
said the puzzled Ali. Ali Baba peered closely at the rocky wall where the men had disappeared. 40 men can't just gallop into a mountainside. It didn't make any sense. Suddenly, Ali Baba again heard the thunder of horses' hooves, but this time it came from inside the mountain. He crouched behind a rock and watched amazed as the mountainside opened up and out rode Mustafa and his 40 men. Mustafa turned and cried out,
"Close sesame!"
and the rocky wall slid back into place. By all that was magical, it was a secret cavern. After Mustafa and his men had galloped off, Ali Baba walked up to the mountainside. He knew there was a magical cave inside that could be opened and closed by words. Ali Baba muttered the words to himself.
Close sesame? Open sesame?
When Ali said, "Open sesame," an incredible thing happened. The mountainside opened up. Excited and afraid, Ali Baba stepped gingerly into the magical cave. And when the poor woodcutter saw what was inside, he couldn't believe his eyes. There, piled high, was a mountain of treasure. Ali Baba looked around in amazement. He was surrounded by diamonds, rubies, emeralds and gold, an ocean of gold coins.
An ocean of gold? Why not?
Exclaimed Ali. And with that, the excited woodcutter dived headfirst into his golden ocean. Ali loaded up his donkey with 2 sacks of gold and jewels and prepared to return home. He felt a little bit guilty about taking some of the treasure, but he told himself that it was already stolen, so it didn't matter. After giving the command, "Close sesame," Ali Baba and his treasure-laden donkey started towards home. When she looked at the pile of treasure her husband spread before her, Shara could barely believe her eyes.
Husband, this is truly a miracle.
She cried. They needed to weigh the gold in order to calculate its value, so Ali Baba asked his wife if she would borrow some scales from his brother Qasim. When Shara had gone, Ali Baba put aside a jewel-encrusted bottle. He would clean it in the morning and present it to her as a special gift. Shara went to Qasim's and asked for the scales, but Qasim and his cross-eyed wife, Fethi, were suspicious. They knew Ali Baba and Shara had nothing worth weighing, but they loaned her the scales in exchange for the day's cleaning work Shara had done for them. While Ali Baba and Shara happily weighed and counted all their treasure, Qasim and Fethi still had their doubts.
That wife of your brother's makes me suspicious, Qasim. I've set a trap for her.
Sneered Fethi. Nasty Qasim was very pleased with his wife's cleverness. After spending the entire night weighing up the gold and planning on how they were going to spend it, Shara returned the scales to Qasim. When she'd gone, Fethi revealed her trap. She had smeared the bottom of the scales with grease, and there, stuck to the grease, were some gold coins. Now they knew what Ali Baba had been weighing. Qasim reasoned that the only way Ali Baba and Shara could have any gold was if they had stolen it from him. So Qasim marched over to Ali Baba's house and accused him of theft. But Ali Baba just laughed and showed Qasim the stack of treasure.
No! I don't believe it! My eyes are lying to me!
Exclaimed Qasim. Naturally, he wanted to know how Ali Baba had come upon all this treasure. After making Qasim swear he would never mention it to another soul, Ali Baba told his brother the story of Mustafa and the magic cave. Qasim was very interested. Of course, greedy Qasim wanted the treasure for himself, and he raced to the cave as soon as possible. It took Qasim a while to remember what to say to open the cave, but eventually he uttered the magic words, "Open sesame," and the rock wall slid open. Qasim ordered the door to close behind him and strode into the cave. He couldn't believe the amount of treasure.
Gold, gold, tra-la-la-la-la, gold, glorious gold, all mine, beautiful, wonderful gold, whee, la-la-la-la, ooh, yeah, gold!
He jabbered. Filling his puffy pants with gold coins, Qasim staggered to the entrance of the cave and ordered it open. But there, waiting outside, was the thief, Mustafa, and he was murderously angry. Back in town, Shara was searching for a new house to buy. Ali Baba was at home, looking at the bottle he'd put aside to give his wife as a present. All the bottle needed was a little clean, so Ali started to rub it with his sleeve. Suddenly, the bottle began to shake and glow, and a strange green smoke billowed out from its neck. The smoke took form and magically transformed into a beautiful young woman.
You are a genie!
Cried the amazed Ali Baba. The genie told Ali Baba that her name was Morgiana, and that she was the property of the thief Mustafa. Even though Mustafa was a cruel man and he treated her very badly, Morgiana had to obey him.
If he sees my face and calls my name, I must do exactly as he bids,
she explained. Ali Baba vowed that he would not let the cruel Mustafa find the genie. He would hide her and tell no one, not even his wife. Grateful Morgiana thanked Ali and returned back inside her bottle. Just then, Fethi arrived at Ali's house. She was searching for her husband Qasim. Ali Baba told her that he'd not seen his brother since yesterday. But Qasim had not come home last night, and Fethi was very worried. Ali Baba had a pretty good idea where his greedy brother had gone. To the mountains, to take treasure from the cave.
I will go immediately to look for him, Fethi,
said Ali Baba. But when Ali Baba went into the cave, he discovered his brother was dead, murdered by Mustafa. Ali brought home his brother's body and broke the terrible news to Shara and Fethi. As Fethi cried for her dead husband, Ali told Shara they were in terrible danger. Because Ali had taken Qasim's body, Mustafa would realize there was someone else who knew the secret of the cave, and Mustafa would come looking. Before they could bury Qasim, they would need a shroud to cover his body. Ali Baba turned to the genie Morgiana to help him solve this problem. After rubbing her bottle to make her appear, Ali Baba explained to Morgiana that Mustafa had murdered his brother and that they were all in danger.
Oh, master, I am so sorry,
cried the genie. Ali told Morgiana she must keep Qasim's death a secret, or else Mustafa would realize that it was Ali Baba who knew about the cave. So Morgiana went to the tailor, and he agreed to be taken to the body in order to measure up a shroud. Although he was more than a little surprised when Morgiana blindfolded him and refused to reveal the identity of the dead man. Back at the cave, Mustafa had discovered the body was missing. He knew that this meant his treasure was in danger, and he was furious. The vicious thief became even more angry when he realized his personal genie was also missing.
Men, search every hill and valley, every house, every stable,
bellowed Mustafa. So the gang of 40 thieves spread out through the countryside, searching for the house of a man who had recently died. Meanwhile, Morgiana led the blindfolded tailor back to the house of Ali Baba.
Now turn right, tailor,
ordered Morgiana. But unfortunately, the tailor turned left and walked straight into a wall. The genie and the tailor made a most peculiar sight, and many of the townsfolk thought it was very funny. Finally, they arrived at the house. Although the tailor didn't know where he was or who he was making the shroud for, he completed his work and returned to his shop, blindfolded once again. But soon after he started work again, the tailor was interrupted by 2 members of Mustafa's gang. The thieves had heard of the tailor's strange blindfolded walk, and they quizzed him about the identity of the dead man. The tailor confessed that he knew nothing. All he saw was the beautiful woman who blindfolded him. The 2 crooks realized that the beautiful woman must have been Morgiana. So they dragged the tailor off to Mustafa. When Mustafa heard the tailor's story, he knew just what to do. He would blindfold the tailor again and make him retrace the journey from his shop to the house of the dead man. And that is exactly what they did. The tailor had a good memory and was able to retrace his steps. He even turned left at the same place he should have turned right and bumped into the wall again. Feeling his way through the streets, the blindfolded tailor finally reached the door to Ali Baba's house. Yes, this was the place. For the evil thief Mustafa, this could only mean one thing.
Then all who dwell here will know my secret. And tonight, they must all die for it.
Growled vicious Mustafa as he drew a white cross on the door of Ali Baba's house. Later that day, Mustafa gathered his 40 thieves around him in the cave and gave them his instructions. They were to enter the town and find the house whose door was marked with the white cross. Then they were to murder all the people who lived in that house. So the thieves set off on their evil mission. Back in the town, the genie, Morgiana, saw the white cross on Ali Baba's door.
It is the evil mark of my true master, Mustafa. He plans to murder them,
whispered Morgiana. The clever genie thought hard about how she could help Ali Baba, and finally she came up with a plan. That night, Mustafa's band of cutthroats entered the town. All they had to do was find the door marked by the white cross, and soon they found it. Just as they were about to burst into the house, the thieves spotted another door marked by a white cross, and then another, and another.
Here it is, you fools! This one!
No, here!
No, over here!
Come this way!
Look at this one!
No, it's here!
No, it's on this door!
Cried the confused thieves. Every door in the town had been marked with a white cross, for that was the plan of the clever genie Morgiana. When the thieves returned to the cave with their news, Mustafa knew only a genie was clever enough to come up with such a plan. So Mustafa decided to come up with his own plan to outsmart Morgiana. The next night, Mustafa disguised himself as a merchant and hid his men in large, empty cooking oil jars. The jars were loaded onto donkeys, and the disguised Mustafa led them to the house of Ali Baba. Mustafa knocked on Ali Baba's door and offered to sell him the 40 jars of oil at a bargain price.
You had better come in and we'll discuss the matter with my wife. And you must dine with us tonight, good sir,
offered the polite Ali. And so the evil Mustafa sat down to dinner with Ali Baba and Shara, who had no idea of the terrible danger they were in. But the brave Morgiana understood their peril. She realized that the 40 jars lined up outside Ali Baba's house didn't contain cooking oil. They held Mustafa's men. So Morgiana changed her voice to sound like Mustafa and ordered the men to stay inside their jars. She then heated up some real cooking oil and poured a little into each jar, making it too slippery for the thieves to get out. Morgiana then disguised herself as a dancing girl and performed for Ali Baba, Shara, and Mustafa. Stupid Mustafa didn't recognize Morgiana until she used her magic powers to turn him into a pussycat. And by then, it was too late. Having gotten rid of Mustafa and his evil gang, Morgiana and Ali Baba returned to the treasure cave. But Ali Baba wanted nothing more to do with treasure.
I have seen the evil of wealth and what it can do to men like my poor brother Kasim,
said Ali Baba. Then he asked Morgiana to divide up all the treasure and share it amongst the poor people of Persia. And when she was finished, Ali Baba invited the genie back to help his wife Shara, who was going to have a baby in the springtime.